You're standing on the approach. The ball feels heavy but familiar in your hand. You take your steps. You let it go. And you watch it curve into the pocket looking perfect, and it leaves 2 pins wobbling, standing, mocking you. Again. Here is what took me years to understand. The ball in your hand is probably fighting you. For a bowler past 65, the wrong ball quietly steals 10, 15 pins every single game. Not because your arm got weak, not because your eyes went bad, because that ball was designed and drilled for a body that moves twice as fast as yours does now. And nobody at the counter is going to tell you that, because the fix costs less money, not more. I remember the exact night I first suspected it. A Tuesday league at the old Fair Lanes across town, the year my knees started clicking on the approach. I threw what everybody swore was the best ball on the shelf, and I watched it dig into the lane a full 10 feet too early, burn up all its energy, and coast into the pocket like it was tired. Corner pin. Every frame. So stay with me, because there is a finding tucked inside a United States Bowling Congress research study from 2008 that flipped everything I believed about picking a ball. It is simple enough to use this Saturday, with the body you have and the budget you have, in the same bowling alley you already go to. You do not need to be stronger. You need to stop making one expensive mistake. Let me take you back to the first thing I got wrong, because it is the thing almost every older bowler gets wrong, and it is hiding in plain sight. Weight. For most of my life, I believed a simple thing that turned out to be half a lie. I believed a heavier ball knocks down more pins. It makes sense, doesn't it? More weight, more force, more pins scattered across the pit. That is what the man who sold me my first ball told me back in the day, and I carried a 16-pound ball for the better part of 3 decades because of it. Here is the part they leave out. Pins do not fall because of how heavy your ball is. They fall because of how much energy your ball is still carrying when it reaches them. And a ball that is too heavy for the speed you can generate today arrives at the pins exhausted. Think about that. A 16-pound ball only hits like 16 pounds if you can still move it down the lane with real speed. When I was 50, I rolled the ball around 17, 18 miles an hour without thinking about it. By the time I hit my late 60s, without even noticing, my speed had dropped to maybe 13, 14. Same ball, far less speed. And a slow, heavy ball does something cruel. It starts to hook too soon. It grinds against the lane, and it burns off its punch long before it ever meets the pins. There is an old guideline that pro shops used to live by, going all the way back to the mid-century days of hard rubber balls. The rule was roughly 1 pound of ball for every 10 pounds of your body weight, up to the legal maximum of 16 pounds set by the certification standards. A man weighing 160 pounds was pointed toward a 16-pound ball, and that was that. But that old rule was written for people in their 20s and 30s, with strong shoulders and fast arms. Nobody ever wrote the second half of the rule, the part that says, as you age, as your swing slows, you must come down in weight to match the speed you actually have. So, I did something that felt almost shameful at first. I dropped from 16 pounds to 14, 2 pounds. My league buddies gave me grief about it, called it a lady's ball, said I was getting soft. And the very first night with that lighter ball, I watched something I had not seen in years. The ball held its line. It got down the lane. It arrived at the pocket still spinning hard, still angry, and it drove through the pins instead of nudging them. My average went up 11 pins over the next 3 weeks. 11 pins, from doing less, not more. The reason is something the physics people call revolutions and energy retention, but you do not need the fancy words. You just need to picture 2 things. A heavy ball you have to muscle, that leaves your hands slow and tired, and a lighter ball you can actually swing free and fast, that keeps its life all the way to the pins. The lighter ball, for an older bowler, very often hits harder where it counts. But weight was only the first mistake. because even after I dropped down to 14 pounds, I was still leaving corner pins, still watching that ball make its move too early. And that led me to a second thing. A thing that is far more expensive and far more misunderstood, and this is where I started to get angry about what I had been sold. The cover of the ball. The outside shell. They call it the coverstock. And it is the single most important part of the whole ball, more important than the fancy core inside, more important than the color, more important than the brand name printed on the box. Let me give you the short history, because it explains everything. Back in 1959, a company called Columbia introduced the first plastic bowling ball, what folks call polyester. Before that, balls were hard rubber. Plastic was smooth, predictable, and it went pretty straight. Then, in the late 1970s and early 80s, came urethane, a softer, grippier shell that let the ball hook in a smooth, controlled arc. Bowlers loved it because it was strong, but it was polite. It did what you told it to do. Then came 1991, and everything changed. A company brought out the first reactive resin ball, and it hit the sport like a bomb. Reactive resin is sticky. It grabs the lane. It creates enormous friction and an enormous, sharp, snapping hook. Suddenly, bowlers were hooking the ball across half the lane, and scores exploded. Everybody wanted reactive resin. And to this day, walk into almost any pro shop, and the shelves are lined, floor to ceiling, with aggressive reactive resin balls, each one promising more hook, more power, more angle into the pocket. Here is the trap. Those balls are built for people with high speed and a lot of hand, younger bowlers who can rev the ball up and throw it hard. That sharp, grabby cover needs speed to work right. Put that same aggressive, reactive ball in the hands of a 68-year-old bowler with a smooth, slower delivery, and it becomes a disaster. It grabs the lane way too early. It hooks in the wrong spot. It rolls out and dies. And you stand there frame after frame wondering why a ball everyone swears is the best on the market keeps leaving you flat corner pins. I bought one of those balls, paid over $200 for it. I remember standing at the counter feeling proud, thinking I was finally getting the good stuff, the same equipment the young guns used. That ball was the worst money I spent in 20 years of bowling. It fought me every single night, and nobody warned me. The shelves were full of the wrong thing for me, and the right thing had been quietly pushed to the bottom rack. Because here is what I eventually figured out. That polite, controllable urethane from the early 80s, the kind that got shoved aside when reactive resin took over, is very often the perfect ball for an older bowler. It hooks smooth instead of sharp. It saves its energy. It does not overreact to a slow, easy delivery. It goes where you aim it. And for years it was treated like old junk, like something only a beginner would use. I switched from that expensive, aggressive, reactive ball back to a simple urethane ball, and my scores did not just recover, they climbed. But understanding the cover of the ball opened up a bigger question, one that had been staring at me the whole time and that almost nobody explains to older bowlers, because the answer is hidden inside the ball where you cannot see it. The core. Inside every modern bowling ball there is a weighted lump, a shaped block of dense material, and it is called the core. You cannot see it, you do not think about it. But it controls how the ball rolls, how it stores energy, and how sharply it wants to turn. Now, they make two broad kinds. There is the symmetric core, which is balanced and smooth and predictable, and there is the asymmetric core, which is lopsided on purpose to create a stronger, sharper, more violent hooking motion. And I want you to hear me clearly, because this is the part that took me the longest to learn and cost me the most. Those aggressive, asymmetric cores need revolutions to wake up. They need a bowler who can put a lot of spin on the ball, a lot of hand, a lot of speed. The whole point of that lopsided core is to create a big, late, snapping reaction, and that reaction only happens if you feed it enough rev rate. A younger power bowler generates 400-500 revolutions on the ball. Many of us, past 65, are down around 200, 250 revolutions. And there is no shame in that. It is simply the truth of a smoother, slower delivery. Feed a strong asymmetric core 200 revolutions, and it does not snap. It does not even really wake up. It just lumbers down the lane doing something unpredictable and weak, and you get no benefit at all from the expensive technology you paid for. It is like buying a race car and only ever driving it to the mailbox. You paid for horsepower you can never use, and worse, the thing handles badly at the only speed you actually drive. What an older bowler wants, almost always, is a symmetric core, a mild one, something they sometimes call a pancake core in the cheaper balls, or a gentle symmetric core in the mid-price ones. Something predictable, something that rolls smooth and does exactly what you expect every single frame. Consistency, for us, beats power every time. And if you're honest with yourself right now, you know that curse. You make the smooth, easy shot. You watch the ball roll into the pocket, and one lonely corner pin stands there laughing at you, game after game after game. That grinding frustration is exactly what the Senior Bowler's complete system was built to end for good. It's the full, permanent version of everything I'm walking you through. How to pick the right ball weight so you stop fighting your own equipment, a grip that protects your wrists and fingers, and how to make the ball hook smart instead of forcing it with a body that's changed. It's built specifically for bowlers past 65, respecting what your body can actually do now, so you can bowl again without the ache or the embarrassment. And here's a check you can run tonight, for free. The landing page says 609 pages of real content, so open it and count the volumes yourself before you trust a single word of my promise. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And that corner pin frustration isn't going away on its own. It's costing you pins every single game you keep throwing the wrong ball. Now stay with me, because there's one more piece almost nobody knows, and it comes straight out of that research study. Because bowling well after 65 is not about the one spectacular strike. It is about repeating the same shot, the same reaction, the same result, over and over, so you can trust it. And this is the moment I need to stop and talk directly to you. Yes, you. The one who is thinking this whole thing sounds like it is meant for someone still strong. Someone who bowls 3 nights a week, someone with a fast arm and good knees. This next part is built specifically for you, the one who maybe bowls once a week in a casual senior league, the one whose shoulder aches the next morning, the one who thinks maybe your best scores are behind you and the equipment does not much matter anymore. I am telling you it matters more for you than for anyone else on that lane, and here is something you can do this week, alone, with no special skill and no money spent. Do this. The next time you are at the lanes, before your league starts, roll your ball down the lane and watch one thing only. Watch where the ball begins to turn, where it stops going straight and starts to curve. Just watch that spot. If your ball starts curving before it reaches the row of arrows on the lane, the ones about 15 feet out, your ball is hooking far too early for you. That early hook is exactly what is burning up your energy and leaving you those maddening corner pins. It means your ball is too aggressive, too grabby, or too heavy for your speed. That one observation, which costs you nothing, tells you more than any salesman ever will. And here is the second free thing. Take your ball to the counter and simply ask them the weight, and ask them if it is reactive resin or urethane or plastic. Most of us have no idea what we are even throwing. I bowled for years without knowing what was in my own hands. Just knowing those two facts, the weight and the cover, puts you ahead of almost every casual bowler your age, and it lets you make one small change that can hand you back those lost pins. You do not need strength. You do not need to relearn your whole game. You need the right tool, matched to the body you have right now, today, not the body you had at 40. But there is one more thing, and this is the piece almost nobody knows, the piece that pulled all of this together for me, and it comes straight out of that research study I mentioned at the very beginning. Let me tell you what I found, because it felt like discovering buried treasure. For years, the argument in bowling was all about the core. The manufacturers sold the core. The magazines wrote about the core. Everybody believed the expensive exotic core inside the ball was the thing that decided how it rolled, which is exactly why they could charge you $250 for the newest one. But the United States Bowling Congress, the organization that governs the whole sport, decided to actually test it. In their equipment research work through the mid-2000s, published around 2008, they broke down what really controls how a ball moves down the lane. And what they found quietly turned the whole business upside down. The single biggest factor in how a bowling ball reacts is not the fancy core. It is the surface of the coverstock, the texture on the outside of the ball. Depending on how you count it, the cover accounts for the large majority of the ball's reaction, and the core, a much smaller share. The thing they charge you the most to obsess over matters far less than the thing you can change yourself for almost nothing. Read that again slowly, because here is what it means for you and me. You do not need to buy a new ball to change how your ball reacts. You can change the surface of the ball you already own. Here is the forgotten trick, the one the old-timers in the back of the pro shop knew and never advertised. The surface of your ball has a texture, measured in grit, just like sandpaper. A shiny, polished ball skids farther down the lane before it grabs, which is often exactly what a slower, older bowler needs, so the ball saves its energy for the pins instead of hooking early. A dull, sanded ball grabs the lane sooner and hooks earlier. So if your ball is hooking too early and dying, leaving you those corner pins we keep talking about, you can have the pro shop put a polish on it, or you can very gently do it yourself with a high-grit polishing pad, and that ball will suddenly skid farther, hold its energy, and drive through the pins. It is the cheapest fix in all of bowling, often just a few dollars, and it can do more for your score than a brand new $200 ball. And there is a second half to this secret, and it is the most satisfying part of all. Remember that polite old urethane cover from the early 1980s, the kind everybody laughed at once reactive resin took over? In the last 10 years or so, the best professional bowlers in the world quietly went back to it. They rediscovered that urethane's smooth, controllable, energy-saving reaction is a weapon on certain lane conditions. The manufacturers started making urethane balls again, and the pros started winning major tournaments with them. The very thing that was pushed aside as outdated turned out to be exactly right, the smooth, controlled, forgiving reaction that we older bowlers needed all along. Think about the whole shape of this. The controllable ball existed. It got buried under the flashy, aggressive, expensive equipment that sold better and made more money. A handful of quiet people, old pro shop operators, a few stubborn coaches, and eventually the smartest pros in the world kept the knowledge alive. And now it is in your hands. You know what most bowlers your age still do not. That the smoothest, gentlest, most controllable ball, thrown at a matched weight, with a polished surface that saves its energy, is very often the highest scoring ball an older body can throw. So let me put the whole thing together for you, plain and simple, the way I wish someone had told me 20 years ago. Come down and wait until you can swing the ball free and easy and fast, even if that means dropping to 14 or even 12 pounds and letting your buddies tease you. Let them. Your scores will do the talking. Look hard at the cover of your ball, and if you are a smooth, straighter, slower bowler, which describes most of us now, steer away from the most aggressive, reactive resin balls and look seriously at urethane or a gentle plastic ball for control. Skip the exotic, lopsided, asymmetric cores that need revolutions you no longer generate, and choose a simple symmetric core that rolls the same way every single time. And remember, the biggest secret of all, the surface is king, and a polished surface on a ball that hooks too early can hand you back your energy, your carry, and your pins for the price of a cup of coffee. I did all 4 of these things over one winter. I dropped 2 pounds. I switched from that expensive grabby reactive ball to a smooth urethane. I let the pro shop shine up the surface. And I stopped chasing the exotic cores. My league average went up by more than 15 pins, and it stayed up. At my age, I was bowling better than I had in a decade, not because I got stronger, but because I finally stopped throwing a ball built for somebody else. That corner pin that used to haunt me on Tuesday nights, it falls now. Most of the time, it falls. And every time it does, I think about all the years I stood on that approach, doing everything harder than I needed to, blaming my arm, blaming my age, blaming everything except the one thing that was actually wrong, the ball. Here is what I want you to feel. Walking away from this, you did not lose your touch. You did not get too old for this game you love. You were simply handed the wrong tool and told it was the best one, over and over, until you believed the problem was you. It was never you. You are exactly the kind of person this matters. For someone careful with a dollar, someone who takes pride in doing things right, someone who can feel when they are being steered toward the expensive thing instead of the right thing. That instinct in your gut, the one that wondered why the priciest ball on the shelf kept letting you down, that instinct was correct all along. Trust it. It has been trying to tell you something. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean this, because this next part only works if you actually do it. Tell me in the comments, what weight ball are you throwing right now? And do you know if it is reactive, resin, urethane, or plastic? Just those 2 things. Type them in the comment box below and hit reply. I read them, and I promise you, when you see how many other bowlers your age are throwing a 16-pound aggressive ball and struggling with the exact same corner pins, you are going to feel a whole lot less alone and a whole lot more sure that the problem was never you. And if this handed you back something the counter never did, stay with us here, because this is what we do. We dig up the practical knowledge that got buried under everything they wanted to sell you, and we hand it back to the people it belongs to. Next time, I'm going to show you the small change to where you stand on the approach, just a few boards over, before you ever take a step that can straighten out your whole game without touching your swing. Most bowlers over 65 are standing in the wrong spot and have no idea. But that is a story for next time. For now, go find out what is really in your hands. Drop the weight if you have to. Shine up that cover. And go knock down that corner pin that has been laughing at you for years. It falls now. Trust me, it falls. Now this video gave you the overview, but to go deeper, come inside the Wise Living Circle, where I pick up right where we just left off. And you can ask me your own question, a real person, me answering you myself. You won't be doing this alone. You belong here with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time with one click. Now that you know which balls to avoid, let's fix your grip. In the next video, I'll show you the simple way to hold your ball that protects your hand and adds even more pins. It's starting right here.